Okay. All right, so today, as we kind of already discussed, but because the kids at home are just tuning in, we're jumping all the way to lesson 7-6, all right? We're gonna take all this stuff that kind of is in between lesson 7-2 that we just finished up with, or 7-3, and then the stuff that we're getting ready to do, which is 7-6, and we're gonna kind of pile it all into one lesson today, all right? Which, don't let that freak you out and think it's gonna be such a large amount of information. It's not. Math is practice. It's not words to memorize. It's not information to memorize. It's once you figure out how to do it, you know how to do it, okay? So, today we're gonna learn how to subtract mixed numbers. So up to this point, we've really only played with subtracting fractions. Now we're gonna kind of look at how to subtract mixed numbers, okay? So when you think back to the adding like mixed numbers thing, it really wasn't much different, was it? The only thing, you just kind of had to work in pieces. So in this example, you're doing the same thing, okay? So as your little note there tells you, in this example, we're going to subtract our fractions first. And if you don't need to borrow, then subtract the whole numbers. Today, you won't need to borrow. We're going to get into that last, okay? I got to get you comfortable with knowing how to subtract mixed numbers before I start throwing in borrowing, okay? So the first thing today, the lesson today that we're focusing on is just knowing how to subtract fractions, mixed numbers, and whole numbers. So that's what we're looking at, okay? So let's check out the very first problem, all right? So if you were looking at a problem such as the one that you see there in purple, 3 1/3 minus 1 1/6, knowing what you know about adding mixed numbers, let's see if you can solve it. So go ahead, write this problem down, use your knowledge of adding mixed numbers, and see if you can find the answer without me even teaching you anything. Because remember, math is a building subject. You build off of stuff that you previously learned. So if I've learned how to add mixed numbers, then subtracting them should pretty much be the same. It's just that last step, I'm going to subtract instead of add. You already got the answer? All right, hang on. Okay, hang on. Once you get it, just kind of, relax for a sec until we can see how you did. All right? Huh? You never realize. I told you at the start of the school year, I said, those of you that don't like math are going to realize math isn't that bad. And there's a lot of you in here now that have turned into strong math students. You never believed you could. And so much of what you're capable of is what you believe you can. If you believe you can do it, you can do it. It's a confidence thing. So see, I didn't even teach you anything yet. And there's a large amount of you sitting out there that believe you have the right answer right now. Okay? Do you have a question? Okay, then hang on just a sec. What? I don't know what you're pointing at on your desktop. Huh? We're not talking about tomorrow. We're dealing with right now, today. Okay, so if we were adding mixed numbers, what would be the very first thing, Shane, that we would need to do?
You need to find the common denominator.
Yeah, I gotta find the common denominator, because in this problem here, I have a 3, I have a 6. Those aren't the same. So I need to start building new fractions that contain a common denominator. So Hallie, what would be the least common denominator between 3 and 6? Oh, 6. That one's not too tough, right? So I like to kind of work my fractions side to side. If you're one of those people that likes to stack them on top of each other, you can rewrite it and do that. Just make sure you don't rearrange the order. 3 1/3 is the first one listed. So if you choose to rewrite it in a different way, you have to list 3 1/3 first. Okay? 3 1/3, if you stack them, would be on the top. All right, so Shane, I'm going to stick with you. What's my new numerator going to be here on this first fraction?
2.
I need 2. God bless you. What would my opposite one be?
1.
Good. Bring down my subtraction. What would I then do next, Shane?
I need to subtract 2 6 and 1 6.
Which equals, please stop humming.
To get 1/6.
Perfect. I'm gonna write it over here because I'm kind of running out of space.
And then you subtract the top, the whole number to the top. And put it up.
That's right. So, but Shane, before we jump to those whole numbers, don't we always have to make sure that our fraction is in simplest form? Are we looking at a fraction in simplest form right now? Yes, there's no way we can get it any lower. If it has a 1, you can't get it any smaller than that, right? So 1/6 is as small as it can go. So then Shane said the last step is to,
Go to the whole on the top and subtract those and put them in the bracket.
which is, what's 3 minus 1?
2 and 1/6.
There you go. Your final answer should be 2 and 1/6. Who got it without me even teaching it? Okay. So, see how smart you've become? You don't even sort of need me anymore, okay? Now, will they all look this like that though?
No.
They really won't all look like that, okay? Because sometimes, like this example has a mixed number being subtracted by a mixed number. But what happens if they don't look the same? Like it's not a mixed number minus a mixed number, but it's something else.
So fractions.
So let's check out what that kind of example would look like. So a second example I want to show you is this one right here. 4 1/4 minus 3. Okay? Now this one I'm not going to set you on your own yet. I want you to let me kind of give you a little bit of help on this one. Okay? Now I did try to kind of give you a little piece of advice in my little red cloud there of knowledge to try to help you, okay? If you're somebody who likes to take notes, that would be a good note to take. Because there are going to be times when you're playing with subtraction that you won't have a mixed number minus a mixed number, but you're going to have a mixed number minus a whole number. So what am I supposed to do if I'm looking at a situation like this one, where the whole number that's in the position at the end doesn't have a fraction next to it? Can I make a fraction?
Yes.
Yes, I can. This little cloud says, if the fraction is missing, make one using a 0. Well, how in the world do you make a fraction using a 0? Ooh, now he has an idea. So I'm hearing some chirps from the crowd. I heard him say the fraction could be 0 over 0. Is 0 over 0? Remember, I can't change the value of 3. It has to stay 3. So if I have a mixed number and it's 3 and 0 zeros, is that going to change the value?
No.
Is it still going to be 3? Okay, well then that could work. But what do we always know we have to do when we solve a problem with fractions? What do we have to find first, Brennan? The common denominator. So right now, are 4 and 0 common denominators? So could I change the 0 instead of putting a 0 over a 0?
Oh, you put 0 over like 4.
Yes.
I
I just put 0 over. Is 0 over 4 still equal to 0?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and we don't even have to find the common denominator now because we already have one. So now we've eliminated an entire step. We don't have to find a common denominator. We don't have to make new numerators. We don't have to do any division. Now we're just looking at 1/4 minus 0/4. So what is 1/4 minus 0/4? 1/4. Is that in simplest form?
Yep.
So now we can just move on over like Shane said a second ago to the whole numbers. What's 4 minus 3? 1. 1 1/4 is
I literally did that at the beginning.
Okay, hang on. I got a question from the crowd. Yes.
Actually, it's a lot simpler. You just take 1/4 and subtract 4 minus 3.
Okay, but you gotta be careful. Because remember how I said, but remember how I said, there are gonna come times where you're gonna have to borrow. So you cannot just always think that if there's nothing there, then I just leave it as nothing. Because what happens if there was nothing there over here? You would have to borrow. And you gotta borrow from something. So you do have to learn that if there's a fraction missing, you have to make one. So in this example, because we're not borrowing yet, babe, you could just do 1/4 minus nothing is 1/4. But when the rules start changing and we gotta borrow,
What do you mean by borrow?
I mean, like, so let's think back to second grade when we had like 32 minus 18. 2 minus 8 you can't do, right? So you have to borrow to make your 2 get bigger. Well, in fraction world, there's times you gotta borrow also. So,
Can you do an example? I really understand what you mean.
well, I really don't wanna do an example yet for that because then you're gonna kind of get confused on this. I know you won't think you will. The last lesson of the chapter is teaching you how to borrow with fractions. So I'm gonna wait, I'm not gonna jump ahead, okay? But that's what I mean. So basically, you need to train your brain that if there's nothing there, you gotta put something there. Because when it's a borrowing situation, if you don't have nothing there, it's kind of like this. Okay, let me try to explain it maybe a little bit different. Let's stick with what you know whole numbers. So let's say that the problem was, let's say that the problem was, I'm just gonna make something up, okay? Let's say it was 8 minus, 14, okay? Now, because you know whole numbers, you look at that, you're like, that don't make no sense. Okay? But if you were to set this up as a problem, and you set it up as like 8 minus 14, can you just say that this is 1? If there's nothing there? No, you couldn't. So see, like, you have to kind of learn that when there's nothing there, you have to kind of put something there so that you don't make a mistake with subtracting, okay? And it'll make more sense once we get to that section, but I have to kind of build your confidence first and get you to believe that you can do this, and then we'll jump to the other, okay? All right, so now you've seen what it looks like to subtract a mixed number by a mixed number. You've seen what it looks like to subtract a mixed number by a whole number. So then what would be left?
Mixed number by
A mixed number by a fraction. Okay? So I think you could probably do this. If there's no whole number there, what can you put there? Addison?
A 0?
You can stick a 0 there. Because did that 0 change the value?
Nope.
Nope. And now you're looking at a mixed number minus a mixed number, which you already know how to do. So show me what the answer to that would be. Work it out. And Connor Grill, I want you to go to the board and work it up there on the smart one. Connor's gonna work it. What's the least common denominator that you should be building these fractions with, Mason? Yes, 9. Oh, no. Is that 9? Okay. Yep.
Yes.
Yes. You don't want to see the answers? Oh, he's getting ready to do it. I have faith that he will get the answer right. Amazing. Thank you so much. Now, do you see why in the book they wanted me to teach that to you in all 3 different lessons?
Yes.
They wanted me to teach you in one lesson how to subtract a mixed number by a whole number. Then they wanted me in another lesson to teach you how to subtract a mixed number by a fraction. And then in another lesson they wanted me to teach you how to subtract a mixed number by a mixed number.
What's for
I
that?
shoved all that into one lesson.
And you know,
Because
Less than 40 minutes.
what's the point in taking so much time to learn something that's not part of
And
it?
what do we do?
Okay.
So
So
you did it in less than 4 minutes.
let's do, why don't we do some stuff at the board? I'll get you up moving.
Yes.
Okay. So now the people at home don't want to kind of sit there and listen to me talk while you're working at the board. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you what your homework's going to be so we can shut off this recording and these people can kind of then start doing at home what they need to do. But your assignment this evening, so open up your workbook to lesson 7-6. I'm not super sure the page. It's probably going to be 115, 113. 113. 115.
Yeah,
115. Okay. So on page 115, obviously,
Can we just do evens?
let's see. I don't make sure that.
We can do all 16.
Hold on a minute.
Well, I don't. Yeah, let's just do 5. Yeah, just one page only.
Well, does the front page give you an example of each? It does, doesn't it? All right. So I'll agree with you. Let's just do that. So tonight, your assignment is just going to be complete page 115 only,
Even though.
all problems.
Well, I
So, everybody understand what your expectation is? So, page, people at home, page 115, all problems on page 115. You do not have to do page 116, okay? Because page 116 is just a repeat of page 115. But you should see examples of problems on page 115 that have you subtracting whole numbers and fractions and mixed numbers. You should see all of that we just practiced today. Page 115, all. Okay, all right. And we are gonna log out with our people at home.
And we